right. Well, we're going to continue this about being in relationship. So the first Sunday we did being in relationship with God, the source of all life, a good place to start. Last week we were talking about being in relationship with ourselves and how that's non-negotiable, that everything else comes from how we are in relation, how we treat ourselves, and whether we listen and whether we have our back and we're unconditional in our loving and we delight in ourselves. How many people sort of really started paying attention to how good you are to yourself this past week? Yeah, all right, good, great. Make sure we keep doing that, because the way often when we start learning these things, the way we do it is to find out what's wrong and we want to fix it. There's much more energizing to really start focusing on what we already do right. So continue to do that. Continue to say, oh, I just gave gratitude, or I just gave thanks, or I just loved myself a little bit today, or So continue to be on a treasure hunt for your what you already do to be in a loving relationship with yourself and be in a loving relationship with the divine source of all being, the infinite love intelligence of the universe, which for brevity purpose, I'll call God. So today it is in being in relationship with others. And really the message is simple today, which is just delight. We're here to be in delight, and that relationships are one of delight. Sri Aurobindo talks about spirit as being just this pure bliss, and that the whole reason why it came to create an earth was out of joy, out of delight. It's just like us. When we get bored, what do? We want to write a story. We want to go to a movie. We want to read a book. Even if people love sports. I looked over here for some reason. I don't know why. There's stories around it. The Olympics, they have the whole stories, or there's the story of the two teams fighting each other, who's going to win, or the competition. There's the stories that we do it because stories are interesting. We don't have to. We could just sit around and be blissed out and meditate all day. But how many of us here choose that every time we have a free time, we just meditate the whole time? Generally, we want to create. And that's the idea, is that this source for pure delight wants to create. And so we look at Reverend Michael's talk or reading this morning, which come from his talk, so I can hear his voice as she's saying it, which is so often when we go through life, we look at the world and can be victimized by it. It determines how we're going to feel. And sometimes we can get in that way in the New Age. So New Thought people get very up in arms if people confuse us with the New Age. And the reason why they get up in arms, I say they, but I guess I am us. I guess I'm New Thought. Us, we, is New Age. A lot of New Age is about also looking for guidance externally. So whether it's tarot cards or crystals or horoscopes or your enneagram, all of those are good. But we don't want to get our power from that. We want to get our power from inside. New Thought says, no, the infinite oceanic power is from within us. And when we consciously choose to participate in it, we then put the energy out. We can shift and make different choices. So I've had a very powerful experience of this myself. I was a child who was both shy and introverted. Just for those of you who don't know, those are not the same thing. What to be introverted means is everyone's a degree. So extroverts need time alone, introverts need people. It's just all on a degree. No, extroverts need to be with people. No, but I know that's why I did say it backwards. So it's not that extroverts only need to be with people. They also need to be alone. Introverts don't only need to be alone. They need to be with people. So what I'm saying is we all have all of it inside of us. It's just degrees. So if we come out more introverted on the Myers-Briggs test, that just means that I need more, that stimulation I'll get more filled with stimulation quicker than someone who's an extrovert. Someone who's an extrovert can be in with people more and then go be by themselves, but they don't need as much time by themselves. So that's all it is. It's not, I still need to be with people, extroverts still need to be by themselves. It's just degrees. Shyness is a whole nother thing. Shyness is when we're sort of embarrassed. We don't want people to look at us. We don't want anyone to pay attention to us. That's shyness. You can be introverted and not shy. When I was little, I was both. To the extent, I loved church. We went to church every Sunday. And yet I remember winning this little prize. This is just for us to be aware of the little kids, for having the longest braids. I was very proud. But I remember this so well. I was sort of watching myself because it was so paralyzing. I had to go up and get the award. And there was no way I was going to get that award. And so people are pushing at me, go get the award. I'm like, no! And of course I'm crying, so everyone's staring at me, and it makes it worse. And so I wouldn't even in my own family, I had 3 older brothers and 2 parents. And I loved all of them. I adored my family. But if they all looked at me at the same time, my face would turn bright red, and I just couldn't look at them. And so they called me ostrich because I would never allow myself to be looked at. So that's shyness. And I had it in a bad way. So in my neighborhood, I would hide behind the bushes because I had a little friend across the street. One-on-one, shy people are good. And there were all these kids playing in the street in our yard. So I would wait till they couldn't see me, and I'd go tearing off because my biggest fear was that they were going to see me. So I also went through a period where we were moving a lot. Or no, it just happened in my schooling that it happened. So I grew up in the suburbs of of Cleveland. And then my dad got a job down for the Senate in Washington, D.C., and he knew he didn't want to stay there, but he wanted to be in service to his country. So he knew he was going to take the job for 3 years, and we were going to move down for 2. He would commute the other. So I was told this in 7th grade. So I went to Malvern Elementary School for 6th grade, Byron Junior High School for 7th grade. We moved down to the D.C. area, and I went to Leland Junior High School for 8th grade, BCC for 9th grade, and then Shaker Heights for 10th grade. So suddenly this very shy person is in this moving, has to be in new situations. But something went on in my brain. I just made a different choice. And I thought, and here's how it went. I'm never going to see these people ever again for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm going to be down there for 2 years, and then we're coming back to the same house. We were only renting our house for 2. I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to be friendly to everybody. And I had made all opposite choices of what I normally did. I went down there, even before school started, there was a girl we were at a flea market or something. I just struck up a conversation with her. Turned out she was new to the same school I was, and we were classmates. And I was just started doing this. Just started befriending everybody. It's like but here's the thing. I didn't know it at the time. I made the choice, and God put me in the right place, because in Washington, D.C., it's very transitory, being Washington, D.C. So many of the people in the school, their parents worked in foreign service. Like the next girl I met, she just came back from Barbados. Her dad had worked in Barbados. And then another friend that I made, she lived in Hungary, and then Ireland. So people lived all, and then I had a guy in my 8th grade class. His dad was a senator, and then he became, just recently I noticed he was governor of Iowa, so it's kind of cool. You have all these people, but everyone's moving, so you know how schools, you have the groups that start creating in elementary school, and it's very enclosed, and it was totally opposite of that. So everyone was friendly too. I thought it was just because I was so extremely friendly. Oh, look they all respond. But that's because everyone else was in that in that same place. But I had the best time of my life. In fact, I started going through all the people that I went out, did fun things with, and there were just so many, and they weren't lasting friendships, but I didn't take it except for one. I have one friend who I met at the bus stop, and I just started talking with her. And when Jack and I got married, we didn't have anyone but our families, because it was our second marriage, and my one friend who I met at the bus stop all those years later. So I ended up making a lifelong friend. But I didn't know it at the time. Everyone else sort of came and go. And then in 9th grade, my brother was in school, and he was great. He's an extrovert, so he was always introducing me to everybody. And it was just fun. I had a totally different experience of being social, joining every activity, just being the totally opposite of what I was. What's interesting is then when I went back to Shaker Heights, where I grew up, where I was more familiar, I went right back to my old patterns. I sort of withdrew again, wanted to stay home every night, didn't want to go out on the weekends. My brother had to pull teeth to get me to come out. And I did it, but it wasn't because even though I was going out to these parties and participating, I had inwardly just gone back to a familiar pattern. What happened in D.C. was I had made a different choice. I said, I'm going to be different, and it worked. And that's when I realized how much power we have as individuals, that these patterns don't... I know. Was that her, doing that? Oh, that's so cute. Sorry. It's hard to have a baby in the room. It's not so cute. Sorry. That we have choices, that nothing can own us. And so actually from that, even though I went to sort of familiar patterns, the fact is I never really was shy again. That I can pretty much talk to anyone. I know, we'll miss you too. We're here though. I can't do this. My head. Baby head. Sorry. So, I made a choice, and I got to see the joy from making a different choice, and I could never fully go back. So I recognized it anywhere, and I ended up moving a lot as an adult as well, and I can talk to people. That's why people say, oh, you're introverted, you don't seem introverted, because I'm very friendly when I'm with people. I'm not shy anymore. The shyness is gone. So we can make different choices. And that's what Reverend Michael is pointing to, which is I can let my genetics, I can let my Myers-Briggs thing define me, or I can start making different choices, that we can put the energy out there. So much of the time we say, I feel the energy coming at me and it exhausts me, but we need to have dominion over our own energy, putting it out. No, we don't just want to receive love. We want to be radiating and pulsating and giving love, because the more we give love, what do? You get more love. The more joy we get, the more happiness we get. And what I finally came to the conclusion is sometimes we don't do that because we take relationships or people very seriously. We take our life very seriously. When I went back to Shaker, I realized I just got more serious. Like this was my real life. DC was play, because I knew I wasn't staying. And I thought, man, I had so much more fun when I looked at life as playing than when I think this is my real, serious life. So we go into a store. We wait for someone to smile at us. We don't have to wait for someone to smile. Hey, how you doing? Get to know them. Get to know the people at the checkout count and Starbucks and your grocery store and everywhere. Just everyone is our friend. And if we recognize that, if we just realize that all relationships are the delight of the universe knowing itself, then we can just enjoy people, even if it's just I'll never see them again, or I'll see them next week, or we'll be lifelong friends. We don't know what the future is, but in that moment we can delight in them. Because the truth is we're all already one. You know, I think of Reverend Michael. He was in the Seattle airport, and he suddenly had this shift energetically of he was just in another state, and suddenly he remembered he knew everybody there. So he's going up to everyone, oh, I haven't seen you in so long, how you doing? And these people are like, we've never seen you before, who are you? But he had gone into that other universe, where everybody was his friend, and he remembered everybody. So his friend said, Reverend Michael, you're having one of your experiences, just come back here. But that's the truth. We are all intimately acquainted. We don't just have one person or a few people that we're intimately acquainted. If we just walk around knowing that everybody is our intimate and passionate friend, then suddenly we have these wonderful and delightful relationships. Now, what happens then when we have people who are going through challenging times? This comes into compassion. So I know there was Lionel Corbett, who's a Jungian therapist, and he was a professor for one of our classes. He said that when we were with somebody and they're in pain, our job was to be like a tuning fork. So they're vibrating at a certain level. They can't hear us unless we're vibrating at that same level. So if they're really sad or depressed, and I'm all like, oh, that's great, you're going to be just fine. You know, they're going to be like, oh. No, that's not. You don't want to hear that when you're going through pain. So this is where it starts to get challenging. I think compassion is one of our most challenging expressions of love. Because we want people to be able to feel like we get them. I'll give you an unskilled version of that. I was in one of my patterns. I was complaining about it. And my friend who was in New Thought, who knows that I'm whole, perfect, and complete, just said to me, I don't buy that. That's not the truth of who you are. You're fine. You're whole, perfect, and complete. And I'm just not going there with you. And he did two things. I was compassionate on the one hand because he was holding the absolute truth of me. He wasn't letting me be a victim. But he also shut me down. I was like, but I can't. Now he also made my human expression wrong. So that was unskilled compassion. That was compassionate. I'm glad he did it, but it was also unskilled compassion. So skilled compassion is when we can feel somebody. This is why it's so challenging. We can resonate. I hear your pain. I'm with you, but I can't go too much into your story. I can't just go and say, and I'm one with your pain. Because then now we're in it with them and we're no good. The person who's really going to help us, and this is what we really teach in New Thought, is going to be the person who says, I feel your pain, but at the same time, because I've been in my relationship with God and myself, I've been doing that every day and nurturing the truth of who I am. I know that's not who you are, and that's not just a concept. I know that you're whole, perfect, and complete. And that's not even something you need to say out loud, because they might not be ready to hear it in that moment. You'll sense it. You'll feel it from within, whether it's, you know what, I hear that you're in this pattern that you've had ever since you were a kid, ever since you can remember, and you think that's who you are. You think that pattern is your identity, but that's not who you are. You are already perfect, and everything is going to resolve itself into bliss. See, the reason why Aurobindo can have the audacity to say that it's all delightful is not because it's delightful to feel pain, but because he sees the absolute journey of where everyone's going, that everyone's going to resolve into bliss. No matter how dark or painful or scary or ugly that momentary, temporary experience is, if we continue to give ourselves to that infinite and eternal one, if we continue to persevere in that oneness, we are all going to end up and resolve into total and unlimited bliss. We have to really know that, because otherwise we start getting into the pain and the suffering of it. We start being imprisoned by someone else. I remember one of the things, did any of you read Celestine Prophecy? And you remember he talks about the energy vampires? That's one thing I really remember from that book. Because I worked in the mental health facility, and that happens. There are people who are in so much pain, and we have compassion for them, but all they want to do is take. So they can feel your empathy. So they immediately feel your energy, and they immediately just go, oh, I need it, and you give it to it, but it's never ending. That's why it's an energy vampire. They just take it, they take it, they take, and they take. It's much easier to hold boundaries and say, I love you, I see the wholeness in you, I feel the pain, but I can't be taken anymore. I can't give the empathy because I can feel you're draining me, all in your head, unless you're able to say it out loud. Every relationship's different. But if you know that that person is ultimately going to be fine, that if I continue to see them as whole, perfect, that God is never a victim, that God is never at a loss, that they feel that they're experiencing that their life circumstances were so bad that they feel no power within them, but I can know that for them and know that eventually it's going to resolve into bliss, then I can step back in greater freedom. So many times the reason why we don't step back from unhealthy relationships is we think that other person is going to be just so lost without us, that they need us to give up ourselves, our own individual healthy energy, because if we don't give up ourselves, they're going to fall apart. Right? Does anyone ever had that experience where they need us? Yeah. Because they need us. So we end up giving ourselves away to them. We give our energy and our power away over to them. Or because we need them. I don't always want to talk about like we're the ones. Sometimes we're the ones who are needy. You know, I need them because I don't have it within me to do it. And if they put up a boundary and say, I'm not willing for you to pull energy from anymore, we always have that. We go back to our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves. To always have our own back, to always take care of ourselves, to always love ourselves, to turn to God who always loves itself, to know that our source is always within and we're never limited ever. That's why we do the spiritual work. Ultimately, if it feels like so much of my joy came from being in that relationship and now it's over, to know that that was just a temporary expression of joy, that the absolute expression of joy is within me. And that's why in New Thought we just constantly harp on this one thing. The power, the delight, the love, the joy, the infinite possibilities are all available to us inside all of the time, regardless of what our parents did to us, regardless of our genetic history, regardless of everything else, there is that which has always been untouched. I just happened to read this article of this guy. He was imprisoned for 45 years, and when he was criminal for, I can't remember, bank robbery or something. And then when he was in this jail, he was accused of killing a guard, which he says he didn't do. And so he was basically put into solitary for like 40 years. he and another guy, and they say that these two guys were probably put in solitary longer than any other prisoner in the United States. And he's free now. They decided he wasn't guilty. So, but it was interesting. The interviewer said to him, "Can you remember the last time you were free, like when you were 22 and running about?" And he said, "Well, I remember when I was running around when I was 22, but I don't think I was free." He said, "I didn't find freedom until I was here. I found who I really was. All the prison ideas that I had in my mind of who I thought I was, the history, my environment, the patterns. I thought I was all those things and they owned me. When I got in here, I found a freedom that no amount of concrete walls could ever take away." That's what's available to us. And when we really know that, and we know that in every relationship, no relationship can bind me. And that's when we get back into the delight of the universe. That doesn't mean relationships, we don't have to do our work. It doesn't mean that we don't have pain. But that pain doesn't have to own us. It doesn't have to say, this is who I am. This suffering is who I am. It is not who we are. Who we are is infinite oceanic delight and love, peace, joy, harmony, beauty, creativity, abundance. That is who we really are all of the time. And the pain and that suffering may be something we need to work through to become free from, or to solve, or to heal. Because God knows when we're in relationship with somebody, it's not just that one person. We're also in relationship with our parents in our head or our past. There's a lot we're working through. And the absolute truth is we're also free. No matter what that stuff is, we're also free. Relationship with God, relationship with ourself, is what allows us to delight in relationship with others, to not be owned by them, to be able to feel deeply, to be that tuning fork, to say, I can cry with somebody else and feel their pain, but I don't need to get lost in it. I can cry with my own pain, but not get lost in it, because I've really spent time finding my freedom. I was thinking about this, feeling it more. I was with the topic, but then something comes up to really solidify it. So I've talked a lot here of Reverend Nirvana Gale. Do you guys remember me talking about Nirvana and how he's a very loving man, and just, it's interesting. My brother saw a picture of him because he was saying, "Michael Beckwith did your wedding." This is my first wedding. "Did your wedding?" I don't remember him at all. And then I just recently posted a picture of Nirvana. He goes, "Oh, now him I remember." He's a big personality, just all this love just rushing through him. I mean, it wasn't just thought. I mean, it was just, he was love for everybody. So I just found out, and I put it on my page, that he is starting chemotherapy tomorrow and that he's sick. And so just all that love you feel for somebody, and that feeling and emotion like, oh, But at the same time, I didn't burst into tears. I didn't start crying, because I know that Nirvana knows who he is. I know that. There's not a question in my mind. And he knows who he is. He's totally embracing all the prayers and all the help. He's completely unabashed at receiving, because he knows who he is. It doesn't mean he's like, I need the help. I'm going through, and I want to know that I'm whole, perfect, and complete, and I want as many people knowing that for me as possible. So he asked us all to pray for him today, to hold that truth about him. And at the same time, he is still having his human experience of the disease, and I don't even know what disease it is. And by the way, you'll find this happens a lot in your thought. People don't spend a lot of time talking about what the problem is, because what happens is everyone starts asking you about the problem, and they get really invested in the problem. And he's like, that's not the issue. The issue is my wholeness. I want you to know my wholeness. I don't want you to be talking about what kind of disease I have, blah, 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 blah. Wholeness, perfect health, freedom. That is who I am. That's what I want you to hold me in. I don't want you to get caught up in the story. I want absolute truth for my being. To have the courage to ask for that. I want to know the absolute truth in my being right now. I don't want to just heal my little story. I want to know the truth of who I am. And so suddenly to be engaged with someone on the healing process, and at the same time knowing that they know who they really are and calling for it and being able to support them, that whole energy shifts. It's not like this big, dense, oh, he's so horrible. It's like, yes, we know who he is. And I just see all these people posting on his page and sending him emails. And then I'm vitalized because everyone's like, there, we know who you are. Regardless of conditions or circumstances. We don't know what's going to happen to his body, but we know who you are. We don't know what's going to happen to our bodies. One day our body might, and I have one more, I was thinking about this. We may we might die, but who we are will continue on. We always resolve in delight. And I was thinking about this. I hate to bring it up, but on the one hand, it's part of our life, so I just have to. Because I just want to. Oh, it's time to go, though. But I just want to bring it up really quick. I was just thinking, this presidential election, and I'm not supporting any candidates. But I will say this. David Brooks, who tends to be a conservative New York Times writer, wrote a beautiful article on President Obama. And he said, I don't agree with his policies. I've been criticizing him almost the whole time, but the fact is I already miss him. Because the thing is there hasn't been any scandal. He's been a decent guy. He's just a good guy. And when we look at all these candidates coming up, there's going to be drama. What? There are, but they're not president yet. But wait till they're president. I mean, whatever fears that we may have, they're going to be realized. It's going to be realized for somebody, whoever gets elected. In a very intense way, because all these people have very strong personalities, ways of being. And I was thinking about, wow, what's it going to be like if someone like, one of these guys become president? We're going to move from this very sort of even keel to drama. And I thought, wow, our president's going to create a lot of drama in this country. How do I want to be with that? And I thought, even concrete can't limit me, the prison. A president can't limit who I am. I can participate in, whoever your candidate is, if you want to participate and support them, or however you want to do that, that's great. And then I'm talking about once they're in candidacy. However you want to respond on a human level, but in the absolute level, you are untouched by this experience. We are untouched by this experience. And it's our responsibility as spiritually conscious and awake beings, we need to know that. For whoever ends up being in that president, we have to know that they are not more powerful than God. Because sometimes we talk about this president as if they have all this power, and we're all victims to their power. So it's really, really important that we get the right person in, because now we're all victims if it's not the person that we want. It's not that we don't want to make the world a better place. We do. But we also have to, as spiritual beings, know the absolute truth of what's happening in our country and in this world. If we get into a situation where we all blow up in nuclear bombs, we're going to be fine. We're still going to resolve in delight. In some other dimension, in some other worlds, and all these billions of planets, we're going to be fine. We have to know that. Because otherwise we are at the powers out there. So whatever we're using, the whole point of finding the delight in the universe, even if you're in a prison, is to know that all the power, all the good, all the love, all the light is within us. And then we can converse and be in relationship in delight and freedom. Imagine if you're in that prison like that man was for 45 years, 40 of those being in solitary confinement. If he's free, how he's dialoguing with the people, the guards who come. He's not treating them like they're his wardens. He sees them, and suddenly the dialogue starts to shift. And isn't it amazing that he did get out? Because he knew his freedom already, and so everything had to shift until he was set free. Our whole conversation with people are going to change if we don't think they own us. No matter who it is, whether it's a loving partner, whether it's a family member, whether it's a person at work, whether it's the President of the United States, or it's someone in China or Korea. However far away they are, or whether intimate, nobody has power over us. Nobody. And when we really know that, we can delight in one another.